Hello there and welcome to my channel, and yes, you read the description right. I lost 3 homes, 2 of which, actually you could say 3, but at least 2, was because I didn't take drugs. If you're new to my channel, I normally do unboxing and food reviews, but today is not one of those days. I also have subscribers that like my story time, so this is for you. So, I don't know how far back in detail I should go, because if I do a lot of details, it's going to take a lot of time. If I don't do enough of details, you're not going to understand. And just keep in mind, before I say anything, first of all, everything I'm saying is the truth. Second of all, there's multiple things at play, and I'm probably just going to talk about the main things, because if I say all of them, then I'm going to have to dissect each one, and that's going to take even longer. Okay? But for the most part, ever since I can remember, I've had anxiety, really bad anxiety. But I didn't know, obviously, it was called anxiety when I was a kid. Let me take my shoes off. I just got back from the gym, by the way. I actually started getting nauseated, too. I looked it up. I guess that's a common thing. So, I'm taking my socks off, too. Because it's really hot here. I live in Texas. It's really hot. So, ever since I can remember, I've had anxiety. But let me just get straight to the point, and then I'll go back. Okay? So, living with my parents was not the best. It wasn't the worst. But, you know, it was a dysfunctional family. And so, I wanted to get my own place, so I applied for Habitat for Humanity. And when I applied, they said I didn't make enough of money. I was too poor for the organization, for them to accept me in the organization. So I kept checking on my application. Then there was like 1 or 2 times I had to reapply, because I guess they said that my application was, I don't remember. So this went on for a while, and I never did make enough per month on my Social Security disability check to even get into the program. I was too poor. It's like, you know, which is really sad that you help poor people, but you don't help the super poor people. That doesn't make any sense, does it? My dad decided to purchase a old rundown house. It wasn't old, but it was pretty run down. And I believe it was a HUD, but I'm not sure on that. But, and then let me move into it. So, me and my father spent about 9 months fixing this house up. And with my OCD, depression, and anxiety, it wasn't easy. But I had poured about $10,000 of my life savings into this home. I got the best paint by Behr. I get the best carpet from Mohawk by Aladdin. Or, I'm sorry, Mohawk. Aladdin by Mohawk. I redid the countertops because they were bad. I mean, I was doing dishes in the bathtub for a long time, just waiting on my countertops, because they were taking forever. And then they messed up, and they didn't have the right one. They had to come back, and on and on and on. So, just a really nice house. I mean, if you saw the before and after, you wouldn't recognize it. So then after I moved in, I even like the privacy fence I put up. I like soaked it in Thompson's water seal, like probably 10 times. I was buying Thompson's water seal like it was going to, like, because I wanted this stuff to last me. Like, that's another thing too. My father always said, if you take care of your stuff, you'll always have something. That's not always true. That's not always true. So, and good things come to those who wait, and that's not always true either. So, I was supposed to be on antidepressants, but I had issues taking antidepressants. And I was also on Xanax. But I also didn't take the Xanax because I thought, well, why rely on drugs? I was taught in school that drugs are bad. The churches that I would go to here and there would also say you don't need drugs. All you need is Jesus. All you need is God. So I didn't take my medication, okay? So when I finally moved into the house, I tried to sleep there, but I started having like major panic attacks. And I mean major. And it got so bad that like I lost a lot of weight. I mean, I looked really sick, okay? So it was, my depression too. But the most of it was my anxiety, and then also OCD as well. But the most of it though was hell, was the anxiety. It would not let up. So every night, and then it turned to every day, I basically went back to my parents' house. I didn't know at the time on why this was going on, but now looking back, it was because it was a familiar environment. And with my mental illness, everyone's different, but with my OCD and my anxiety and depression, but mostly my anxiety, like I can spend the night in an unfamiliar environment sometimes for a couple, like a day or so, maybe 2 days, sometimes. But don't ask me to live in that environment because, it's like having homesick, but extreme homesick. Like, it's like, that's an understatement to call it homesick. So basically, I was running to churches, wanted to get back on my medication because the medication would calm me down. Okay. And it would help with that transition because eventually I would get used to the environment, the house. But the churches I was going to, especially this Pentecostal type church, was like, oh, all you need is Jesus. And so anyway, make a long story short, my dad sold my house and I moved back home with my parents. Now, keep in mind, he sold it to someone that he knew, and it sold pretty quick because of that. It wasn't on the market. And so I had to like sell all my furniture to not a consignment, I'm sorry. It's like, I don't know. I just had to sell my furniture like cheap, like super cheap, like $800 couch for like, $50, $75. And I didn't even, like, I literally lived in the house from the 9 months after working on it. I was probably in the house for maybe, well, not in the house, but trying to live in the house for probably like 3 months, 2 or 3 months. But in those months, I'm spending more time with my parents. So anyway, I even had a friend who told me, he was like, you know what? You're going to lose that house. Why don't you smoke some weed or drink some Jack Daniels, something to calm your nerves? But no, drugs are bad. So, and how many people do, when I tell this story to you, it's like, I lost a house because I didn't take drugs. Right away, they're like, no, that's not possible. People lose houses because of drugs. Not for me. Drugs would have saved me. So then I moved back home with my parents, and my dad had the bright idea to sell our childhood home. Because when I moved back, like, things got better. I was really, really sad that he sold that house, and I felt like a failure, and on and on and on, negative stuff. But at the same time, with all that, I was thankful that at least my anxiety stopped. I felt a sense of security and stability. And that always gave me that in my childhood home. So, and without it, I flip out. I have anxiety. So, there's more to the story, but, time is important, right? Maybe I'll go back and add, that things that happen, like, because I don't want to be too many details. It's going to take forever. I'm going to be here for 3 hours. Seriously, probably 3 hours. At least an hour and a half, 2. So I moved back home, and then my dad had the bright idea to sell that house and move to like 2 towns over. You could say, 3 towns over, if you count a small town. Between 2 and 3 towns over. So, let me, roll down the window, it's getting hot. So, I spazzed out again. I got put in the mental hospital, and then my mom got put in the mental hospital as well. Not that that was the first time she's ever got put in the mental hospital, and it's definitely not mine. Because when I moved out the first time, actually this is the second time I moved out. That's another thing too. The first time I moved out was an apartment. Same thing. Horrible anxiety. I would try to spend the night at a friend's house, couldn't do it, horrible anxiety. So, sorry for the cars. So we're in the new house, and I'm having horrible anxiety all over again. I just got through losing my home, selling all my stuff for literally pennies on the dollar, literally, okay? Felt like a failure, got a little bit better, and then boom, got to move again. And then my mother got sick. And then, of course, I got blamed. Horrible things. So, we're in this new house, and I'm in and out of mental hospitals, but so is my mother, and I'm still not taking Xanax, because I'm still running to churches and thinking that Jesus is gonna, and God, and, you know, whatever, both. I don't need drugs, you know. Drugs are bad. You know, just be positive. You gotta be strong. You're stronger than what you think, and don't rely on pills, and the same stuff that people would tell me now. So no, I didn't take my medication. Didn't take Xanax or Ativan, because I was a choice. The psychiatrist was like, you can take Ativan, Xanax, or switch back and forth, whatever, as long as it's no more than so many milligrams. So yeah, and then so things at the house, like, they were not. It was very stressful, because, you know, my mother was upset with me, blaming me, because I didn't make it in my home, and therefore my dad had to sell my home, and therefore he sold the childhood home, which makes no difference. Like, you sold my home, I moved back. Why did you have to sell the childhood home that I grew up in to move me, you, and mom? Like, why? Why would you do that? Like, you didn't have to do that. So, I'm in a lot of distress, and I'm thinking, and then my dad's also threatening. That's another thing, too. He was threatening to sell this new house, and him and my mother go into a retirement home, and then he's like, good luck where are you gonna go? So I couldn't trust my dad anymore, like, and there's other reasons why I don't trust my dad anymore. Like, seriously, it took me a long time to realize that. So, yeah. So, Habitat finally got me into the program. I worked my butt off for them. Over 300 hours I gave them. I was there, and that was hard. That was really hard for me. Because the thing is, with Habitat for Humanity, once you get into the program, you are on the job site building other people's homes. And then once you put your hours in, then they build your home. And then someone helps you. And then when they're done with the program, and that's how it works, right? So, it's like you help build my home, and then when you do your hours, there's time to build your home. And then Joe Schmo is going to be there to help build your home, and then when he completes his hours, and that's how it works, right? So I was there, like, all the time, and I had to deal with a homophobic foreman. It wasn't easy for me, not with my problems. I have a lot of health problems. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to dust myself off, and I'm going to try again. So they offered me, the first house they offered me was in the ghetto bad. I went to the police department, and they said that the crime rate is extremely high. And even the officer there was like, I wouldn't even live there, and I don't have, like, medical problems, because I told her I have medical problems, like anxiety, and also I'm gay. Like, in the ghetto, like, that just doesn't go good, because there's a lot of uneducated people in the ghetto. That's why they're in the ghetto, because they're not going to get good paid jobs. Well, uneducated people and homophobia run hand in hand. If you're homosexual, you live in an expensive neighborhood, you're going to have less problems than if you live in the ghetto. It's just the facts. So, they offered me the lot and said, we'll build a house here. I was like, I can't do this, and this is the reason why. I have a legitimate disability. Then they offered me another lot. That was also, it was just like not even that far from that one. So, so then, make a long story short, this is so hard for me to talk about. They finally offered me a home, but instead of building it, it was a home that someone died in. Like, it was another homeowner that was paying their mortgage, but someone died in it. And because I wasn't on any medication, Xanax and any of that stuff, my anxiety was just too bad. And so I told him, I was like, my anxiety is really bad. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can move into a house that someone died in. And so there was other things at play too, but because we're stressed for time, they said, well, you need to come into the office. I came into the office, and they were like, but there was another thing. You know, there was a lot of things going on. They lied to me. But you know, the point I'm trying to anyway, make a long story short, they're like, you're out of the program, and I'm like, well, can I get that house? Like, maybe I can get through my anxiety and stuff. And they're like, no, you said you didn't want the house, and it's 3 strikes, you're out, so you're out of the program. So all that work was for nothing. Like, I went to, it wasn't just over 300 hours. I had to take financial classes, all kinds of stuff. And they were going to sell me that house for under $30,000. And right now, the place that I live right now, right? If I go in the backyard, I can see that Habitat house staring at me and slap me in the face, okay? If I would have taken Xanax, if I would have been high on Xanax, I'm going to say the word high, because when you take Xanax, you get high. If I would have been high on drugs, like Xanax, or maybe marijuana, I truly believe that I would have not lost all the things that I have lost. And I don't care who is watching this and if whether you believe it or not, okay? But, and that's another thing too. Like, I remember this one church in particular, just one example. I went to this one church, and it was a Pentecostal church. And I was in the pews, and the pastor was saying, you know, come up for prayer and stuff like that. And I went up to, I'm trying to remember now, because this has been a long time ago. Like, all these losses, it's been a long time ago, and I'm still not over it. All 3. But you know, they had said to pray for people, and it was bothering me that I lost, that I lost what I lost, and this was before I lost the Habitat house. This was right after I lost my home, and then my parents moved 2 towns over. And I miss my childhood home. I still miss my childhood home. It's been over 15 years. Like, my heart is broken. It's completely broken. Like, someone could offer me $1 billion right now, or go back in time and just would have never moved down my childhood home. I'd rather pick that than $1 billion. That's how much that home meant to me, because it gave me a sense of security and stability that nothing else has ever given me. Nothing. So, let me see who's this. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought now. So, basically, all I'm saying is that, you know, the house gave me a sense of security and stability. And, you know, so, yeah, and how many times, so, the church. So, let me tell you what happened. They're like, do you want to pray for, you know, do you need prayer or whatever? And I was like, yeah, I lost my home. Then I lost my home, and then I lost my childhood home. My dad sold it. And they're like, oh, well, why did you lose your home? Like, or something like that. And anyway, make a long story short, they're like, was it over drugs? It was over drugs, wasn't it? And they're like prophesying, you know, like where they put the hands on you, or they, you know, like, I don't know if it was like this, or maybe it was both. I don't know. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, it was lack of doing drugs. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, and they start, you know, saying, you know, that I'd taken drugs and I missed my mortgage, and that's what made me lose my home. I'm like, no. I was like, I lost my home because I didn't take drugs. Oh, that Pentecostal church didn't like that. No, they didn't, because see, that means that they're wrong. They're wrong, and I just called them out on that. How many people can sit there and say that they lost 3 homes because they didn't take drugs? Now, you could probably say, well, that second house was your childhood home. That's your father did that because he wanted to. Okay, then 2 homes. The first home that I was having panic attacks in, And then the third home, which is the Habitat for Humanity house that I worked my ass off for, okay, that I could have gotten, but because of my anxiety was so bad, because I didn't take drugs. Because the word drugs doesn't always mean street drugs, okay? Tylenol is a drug. But how many people can say that? You know, it's beyond any feeling I could even describe to you, knowing that I didn't do anything wrong. The only thing wrong I did was not take drugs. Because, you know, I'm the most responsible person, especially when it comes to finances and bills, okay? I'm extremely, ultra, insanely, ridiculously conservative, okay? I'm not behind on my bills, or I'm always ahead. You know, they say live within your means. I never live within my means. I've never lived within my means. I always live drastically under my means. I'm the type of person that if I have a mortgage, I'm going to pay extra on it. I'm the type of person that if I get a water bill for $60 and I have $200 to spare, I'll just give them $200 so that I'm ahead of my bills. I should have never lost what I lost. Never. Like I said earlier, my dad said, if you always take care of your stuff, you'll always have something. I've always taken care of my stuff. The only thing I haven't taken care of is not a thing, and that's me. So am I upset and pissed? Yeah. How can I not be? How many people can sit there and say, and you know how much I make on my disability check? You don't even, it's sad. A fast food worker working part-time probably makes about the same, probably more than what I make on a month. When I've told people how much I make, they're like, how do you live on that? How do you live on that? It's, you know, it's just like I have degenerative disc in my neck and spine, you know, and the doctor gave me hydrocodone. You know, for the longest time I didn't take it because I had to be strong and drugs are bad. You know, I'm so tired, and I can't tell you how many people, especially religious people, have told me, like on Facebook, you know, they've told me, or on Pal Talk, or just wherever, or I go in person to a church, and they flat out tell me, oh well, if you would have been on them drugs, you would have I want to make what? Oh well, then you know you probably wouldn't got behind on your bills and you would have lost the house anyway or whatever. I'm like, so there's a chance I could have lost the house versus I lost the house. What do you think is worse? If I didn't take drugs, either way I lost the house. And if I did take drugs, I could have maybe lost the house. What do you think's worse? I mean, well, if you had a choice right now, would you rather for sure lose a house or just have a possibility of losing one? You'd rather just have a possibility of losing one because you still might lose it, but you might not. And not to mention, I wasn't getting these drugs off the street. It's not like they were costing me a lot of money. So yeah, that's why I titled this what I titled it. Because the fact of the matter is, drugs would have saved me. They would have saved my relationship with my parents. If I would have taken Xanax or Ativan, and yes, I would have gotten high on those pills. How do I know? Because I've taken those pills before. And if I give you a Xanax and an Ativan, you'd probably get high too. That's what they do. I don't know of anyone that's ever taken that and not gotten high. Or street drugs like marijuana. Whether it's prescribed or street drugs, either way it goes, it would have relaxed me enough that my mind wouldn't be racing so fast. And, you know, when I moved back home to my parents' home, like, all hell broke loose. And then when my dad sold that childhood home and moved the whole family and moving me again, you know, it's totally ruined our relationship. And I've also seen the true colors of my family, threats, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I mean, you know, but seriously, I mean, how many people can say that they lost 3 homes, at least 2 of those homes, were because, not because they took drugs, but because they didn't take drugs. You know, I was locked up in one mental hospital. It was state-run hospital. Horrible place. Horrible. And I met a girl there, schizophrenic. Oh, she's so sad. And she told me that she didn't take her schizophrenic medicine because the church told her that, I forgot exactly all the thing. So anyway, make a long story short, she lost her apartment and her car. Because while she's locked up in a state mental hospital, like, how are you going to pay, you know, I mean, I guess it's possible to pay your apartment, but either way it goes, her car note, whatever, it was just hard for her to do that while she's in the hospital, and she lost it. You know, she lost the apartment and her car, and I lost 3 homes. And I would say 3, because if I wouldn't have had issues with the first house and didn't take my meds, I wouldn't have lost my childhood home either. So, whether you look at it 2 or 3, you know, even if it's just 2, even if it's just 1, you know, it's, but yeah, it is what it is, right? But I wish someone could, you know, how many people can say that, you know? I'm seriously, you know, I literally own, well, now I own 2 pairs of shorts. I don't even have a dresser next to my bed. A nightstand or dresser. I don't have either. You know, like, my car, like, you know, no idea. Like, someone could give me, like, $10,000 right now, and I would probably stick it in the bank and or investments. I wouldn't even buy myself another pair of shorts. That is how cheap and conservative I am. And all the work I've done, you know, 9 months working on a house to fix it up, almost close to 400 hours, over 300 hours. I mean, you might as well say 400. Working for Habitat for Humanity, you know, dusted myself off and worked for them. You know, it's like, well, I lost my childhood home, I lost my first house, and you know, and then, and you know, if I go back to Habitat for Humanity, I don't make enough for the program. It just so happens that, like, my disability check went up just enough and the price of the houses didn't, and I just had that opportunity, and that's how I got into the program that one time, you know, because before I would just wait and wait and wait. So and now I'm a slob. Like, my house that I live in is a mess, my car's a mess. I don't care anymore. I really don't. I really don't. I don't take care of my stuff anymore. I'm just like, what's the use, you know? My dreams are shot, you know? Yeah, I spent so many hours in IKEA, Home Depot, and Lowe's the first time. And then again with the Habitat house. I had it all in, you know, because the Habitat house, the floor plan's all the same, at least in this area, you know? And I had it all decked out exactly how I'd have that house. And every time I go in the backyard, the house that they offered me is right there, slapping me in the face. This is another reminder of all the losses I've had. And no one can say, well, you know, maybe you should have paid your mortgage or be responsible on bills. I do that. I challenge anyone that's as responsible as me when it comes to being cheap and conservative and make sure they're ahead of the game. But I'm tired of making these sacrifices, financial sacrifices, and good things come to those who wait. I waited for Habitat. I waited to move into a house after working my ass off for 9 months. I never got to enjoy the house. I never got to enjoy the first house. Where's my Habitat house? Where is it? Because I'm not living in it. I don't have one. I did the program right. If I had the mortgage, I'm going to tell you something right now. I would have paid off a 30-year mortgage probably in like 10 years. 15 years, whatever. I would have paid it off early. My first car that I had, I paid that off really, really early. You know, it's like, and then people tell me, oh, well, you know, the church and just people in general, drugs are bad and this and that and this and that. And I'm like, right. Okay, drugs are bad. Did you lose 3 houses? Then shut up. I don't want to hear it. There's more to it than that. There's more to it than that. But there's other things at play. But if you want me to get more detail, maybe I'll make another video that's like 2 or 3 hours long. It'll be the same story, but all the little, details that probably doesn't really, like, it still doesn't, the point is, I mean, there's no, like, secret, well, why did you really lose a house? Because I was having anxiety attacks because I wasn't taking drugs. So, that's my little story. I'm about ready to go inside. And that was the other thing, too. That Habitat house, brand new air conditioning, really, really small. I've talked to other Habitat Free Humanity homeowners. Their electric bill was like, $30 a month, $25 a month. My electric bill is like close to $200. Small roof, easy to take care of, easy to clean, especially in your old age. You don't think I think about all this stuff? I think about all this stuff when other people don't think about that stuff. And, it's like, if there's a lesson in life besides take drugs, what, like, no one can sit there and say, well, you're financially irresponsible or whatever, And then how many people will sit there and tell me, oh, well, you shouldn't rely on drugs. You should rely on yourself and be positive, and you can do it. I did do it. I did it. I fixed up our house for 9 months. I poured $10,000 of my own money into it. I worked almost 400 hours for Habitat for Humanity. Why did I lose all this stuff? Huh? It's not my fault. I'm not going to take blame for having a psychological and emotional illness. How am I supposed to blame? I'm supposed to be blamed for that? It has nothing to do with being irresponsible. Nothing at all. Nothing. But I can guarantee you right now, whoever's watching this, we can go to churches, we can get on Facebook, we can get on Pal Talk, we can even get on YouTube, and I can guarantee you I will run the same mess. People sitting there saying, you don't need drugs. Just like the church. I mean, I gave you. It wasn't First Church. It wasn't First Church. Like I said, they didn't like it when I told them, I said, yeah, drugs made me lose a house because I didn't take drugs. Oh, they didn't like that. See, they didn't like that. There was a guy on Facebook that I just talked to. He was a drug addict, okay? And now he got his life together. He told me, he was like, don't go back, don't ever get on Xanax. It'll ruin your life. I'm like, I lost my house because I didn't take the shit. They're like, well, you mean you lost it because you were on it? I'm like, no. They're like, that don't make any sense. Or I don't believe you or whatever. Or just believe in Jesus and God. You don't need drugs. I'm like, that's what I did. And look what happened to me. Look what happened to me. So all this bullshit talking about drugs are bad. It has nothing to do with drugs. Well, it does, but it doesn't. The thing is like this. If you lose a home because you took drugs, because you didn't pay your bills, well, that's you, but that's not me. Okay? Because the very drug would have helped me. And I wouldn't have lost my home. Because I am responsible. And as far as like, well, just be positive, believe in yourself. Don't rely on the drugs. That's exactly what was my problem. I didn't rely on drugs. I relied on me and God, and look where it got me. Look where it got me. Because I relied on myself. And I was positive. And I'm strong. And it would have been better if I would have relied on a bunch of pills. It's the fact. It's the fact.